everything okay and giving them the opportunity rather than expecting them to come to you. But I mean, I suppose taking it one step further than that, I think we also do need to be clear as an industry that there is an expectation. If something's wrong, we do want our customers to come and tell us about it. And I think if we're clear with that in the way that we deliver our service and make it very open, I think that we should be discouraging this. Well, I didn't want to say anything then, but I'm prepared to go on to a website and spout off about it in public. That was always my real point of frustration in some of the businesses that I've been involved.
But interestingly, you know, when we talk about confidence levels, I was quite surprised in going to meet with a number of accommodation providers how many of them didn't actually feel confident about asking customers for reviews, and yet we even discount how confident our customers feel about complaining. So it's quite interesting that I think sometimes the confidence levels go both ways in terms of the way people are willing to openly deal with issues. But, you know, and it comes back to a point we raised earlier, which is that and you just raised as well, is being very open about inviting criticism or inviting feedback. And I kind of thought about this issue for a bit, and I think it comes down to an issue of vulnerability. In that the example I like to use is how often do we actually go to our boss and ask for feedback on how we're doing. And part of it's because, you know, yeah, we might get a bit of praise, but we're actually likely in inviting criticism or inviting feedback, we're going to get some complaints. And we don't do it because we don't want the complaints, we don't want to invite them. So as much as it's interesting that that question gets raised, because it basically puts the onus back on the customer and says, well, why didn't they come to me and tell me about the issue? As much as the accommodation provider needs to be out there saying, I'm prepared to invite criticism and as well as praise, and be vulnerable about and public about my business and allowing feedback.
I mean, I think I would always encourage people to go online and respond. But I mean, I think that's also, as I said as well, about in your operation. One of the standards that I've seen in place in a number of hotels all over the world is the courtesy call. 20 minutes after check-in, a quick call. How are things going? You settled in okay? If someone's found a broken lamp or anything, or maybe housekeeping's not up to standard, well, actually, you're going to know there and then because you're explicitly asking for that information. I think one of the things that we'll maybe head on to, which I think is maybe probably the most contentious of all of the comments around review sites, is writing your own reviews or bagging your competitors. So we kind of talked about how that will end in tears, and yeah, do you want to talk through that? So I know that's probably the thing I hear most from moteliers, hoteliers, backpackers, and well, look, there's no point in me doing this because Bob up the road is writing negative reviews on my site and positive on his. So yeah, how would you respond to that one, Jen?
Yep, it comes up a lot. The interesting thing is I've got a couple of points about it, and probably the first one is that I think when we're talking about our competitors writing negative reviews about us, I've actually over time begun to realise that sometimes I think that's more of a euphemism, in that, and what I mean by that is that it's not very nice as a hotel or motel to accept that potentially there might be criticisms. So at this stage as well, when it's not completely, you know, reviews aren't as prevalent as they are in other countries, I think it's easy to think that maybe those reviews could be written by somebody else or a competitor who's trying to be mean, rather than actually introspectively looking and going, actually that might be a customer complaint, and that customer may have chosen to use a different name. I mean, I'm sure it probably, you know, competitors writing that does occur sometimes, but it is actually illegal, and there are some interesting cases in the US as well about people being prosecuted for writing reviews on competing businesses or businesses that they have an interest in. I think what's far, far more prevalent is actually businesses writing reviews about themselves. And I've seen this happen a number of times. And it's actually really dumb, but not so much in a way that people always realise, is that, I mean, we've talked about it again and again, and this idea that reviews are about expectations. Now, if you're good and you write good reviews about yourself, well, sure, the customer is going to equal the expectation, but surely it's just as easy to go out there and actually ask some real customers to write some real reviews, because they will say things in a way that are much more honest and more credible and more realistic. And that's a far, far better approach. If you're writing your own reviews because you're not so good or you're average, and a customer comes along and they read a glowing review about you, and then they have a bad experience, well, what you've essentially done is just motivated that customer to go and write a corrective review. And that corrective review is actually far more likely to be harsher than just asking a general customer who hasn't read fabulous reviews about you beforehand. Because you know, if you've read great reviews and then it doesn't live up to the expectation, you're going to feel somewhat chipped. So that's why I always say writing your own reviews ends in tears, is it's far, far simpler and a much better plan just to ask real customers, because they'll tell you real things and much more interesting things and things that are much more useful to you, and you're not going to end up down this path or this track, which, you know, short-term gain, sure, but in the long term, yeah, no, it's not great. And the other thing that comes out of it too is that with reviews that are highly positive and highly negative, and that's also a bit of an alarm bell for customers. Anytime I would read something that's got 100% and 30% on it, you're sort of going, not so sure about this, and you just discount it and keep looking somewhere else. So you risk that as well. So there are a number of big risks in doing it for pretty short-term gains.
So I think, yeah, it's that key about being consistent, isn't it? That people are looking for consistency within reviews.
It's happened on Fossick a number of times that I've read some really astounding reviews, like really great reviews, and gone, not so sure about that. Jumped straight onto TripAdvisor, Booking.com, see what they say about the same place. And actually, you know, one of my points was, you know, do you need reviews on multiple sites? And that was kind of came up in that if you are really good, you kind of need to be able to show that you're really good across the board, because otherwise people won't believe it.
That's a really good point.
People are actually much more interested in seeing a balanced approach, and they need to see some negative with the positive, because it otherwise it's not credible.
That's great. I'm just trying to read through here. Michelle's now asked a question. It's quite a long question, so I'll try and tackle this one. So I suppose it's really talking about how the ranking system, that algorithm behind how review sites rank the businesses based on reviews. I mean, Michelle says here that sometimes these reviews seem to put certain businesses on top that may not in fact be the best or most popular. And I mean, I've certainly seen it. And I mean, she's going on to ask whether it's just because these people have been more proactive in seeking the reviews. I mean, what happens on Fossick with that? How do you rank?
There's a couple of things that we do on Fossick, and one of them is about combating the issue of the fact that if you have one review, that somebody says you're 100% and says that you're great, well, that's good, except that it's not particularly fair for them, I believe anyway, to rate higher than someone who's got 25 reviews of people saying that they're a 90%. So there is a definite weighting to do with the amount of reviews you have. So that does come back to what you're just talking about in terms of being proactive, so that the more reviews you have, then basically the higher your rating can be. And that's basically so that it brings consistency over time, so that places that have put the effort into being consistently reviewed are not going to be taken down by the one person who gets, you know, one review that's glowing.
It's really interesting. I think we've got 2 or 3 minutes left now, and we've got one last question from Michelle here. So I suppose it's going on from what we've just talked about then, and then saying, so what would be a good strategy? You've just opened a new property to get your point across. To get to a point where you can feature strongly on these sites. What would you be doing if you were in that position?
I would be consistently asking every customer that left the building to write a review.
Been brilliant to chat and hear about what Fossick's doing and talk about review sites in general. And it's been good to have Michelle, Pam, and I think we've had a couple more people come in and out throughout. So I'd like to say a very big thank you to you, Jen, and thank you for everyone that's turned up. And we hope that more of you will be able to have listened to this when it goes up on the tourism industry blog. So thank you very much, and hopefully we'll see a few of you at the eTourism conference.